Okay, let's get into the meat of it. Yeah, it took me 3 videos to get in the meat of this other video from a person that writes photography books, no less, and makes erroneous videos. But it's not an attack video, okay? I don't like misinformation, and I don't like people being bent over and told wrong stuff. I mean, you know, if you want to write fiction books, that's fine. So, you know, write about unicorns and Jabba the Hutt or something like that. Someone's going to go, yeah, you're Jabba the Hutt, right? I know what someone's thinking out there. Okay, next point in the video, the person says that ISO has a bearing on noise between full frame and crop. But this is total bullshit. Let's restate that with this person, his exact words in the video. Says ISO has a bearing on noise between full frame and crop. No. Noise is only as pertains the gain at the sensor, the quality of the AD converters, and the SNR firmware, which all varies from camera to camera. For example, the Nikon D610 is the exact same sensor and the Nikon D750 that I'm filming this video on. And people are going to go, well, this D750 camera's got much better high ISO capabilities than the Nikon D610 had, so I think you're full of shit. But I'm not. I'm not full of shit. I'm 100% accurate. Most important thing, and this is what all the a-holes that love Sony, the phony family. Wait, you got a Sony sensor in that Nikon? Yeah, well, Nikon uses 4 different suppliers. I think technically 5. One's Matsushita, Toshiba, which Sony just bought out. They've got 4 different suppliers. 2 are unnamed. They won't name what they are, but they're different suppliers. The most important thing is not the sensor, it's the AD converters and the SNR firmware. As I told you before, when Nikon comes out with a new camera, Canon takes it apart and they don't give a shit about anything in that camera except for 2 things, AD converters and the SNR firmware. Because that is where all the technology occurs. Well, not all of it, but basically all of it. There might be other additions, although nothing major has occurred in the past 8 years, to be honest with you. And if Canon comes out with a new camera, then Nikon rips it apart and figures out what the hell they did on the AD converters and SNR firmware. So noise only pertains at the gain of the sensor. Quality of AD converters and SNR firmware. Further still, there is less noise on a crop sensor than a full frame, since pixel density is drastically different. Now, as I told you before, let's go over to the chart here on the pixel density and micrometers. Pixel density micrometers on the Nikon D810 is 4.8 micrometers. That's the distance between one photo site and the next photo site, to keep it simple. Distance between the photo sites and Nikon D7100 is about 20% better. It means it's closer together. Smaller also. Now, a smaller, you think less gain. Oh, that's true, but most of that has been negated. That is why a reason why, for example, I was watching a funny video from Zach Arias, and he's like, you know, I'm not backpedaling, but I made this video 8 years ago. I was saying full frame sensors are much better than DX, and now I mostly shoot DX. And I know he's sponsored by Fuji, but he's absolutely correct on this. It is irreducibly true. He says, I'm not backpedaling, but stuff has gotten that much better in 8 years, which I think was when his prior video was made, and that is the case. Radio Astronomy figured this out about 30 years ago. That's why they're not building gigantic, ultra gigantic radio astronomy dishes anymore. They're building lots of little smaller ones. It turns out that for a whole crap load less money, you can build a lot of little satellite dishes, and then you could take all those and process them as one signal. Now, it is the case with noise, when you don't have as much gain and you're using smaller photo sites, that noise has a frequency. I used to remember what the hell the frequency was, but it has a frequency. Now, there's something called PRML, partial response maximum likelihood, and also NPML, which is noise predictive maximum likelihood detection. And that is what exists. That's the secret sauce in your Nikon, your Canon, and your phony camera. And what that does is, you know, you're shooting a well digger's ass at 3 o'clock in the morning at ISO 400. why you're able to, in a raw converter, bring out details that you're just like, hey, this shit is dark. I can't see anything. You're able to bring that out because that noise, now part of that is actually applied in the SNR firmware before it's written to the compact flash card or the SD card, but a lot of it can actually be also extrapolated from a RAW. This is why you're shooting RAW, not JPEG. Can be extracted with a RAW converter in post. And this is the case. It's software. It's firmware. It takes the adjacent photo sites, keep it really simple, and determines what the hell, since you got noise in the middle, but all these adjacent photo sites say this is something else, it'll actually interpret what the missing photo site is. And it applies that, and noise also has a frequency. I think there are 4 different total layers of how you're able to extrapolate out the signal from the noise due to lack of gain and poor SNR, signal to noise ratio. So now, like I said, you have to ask yourself the question, why would you, if you're a bird photographer, want to shoot with a D7100? Oh, that's an old camera and it's only 24 megapixels. And why would you not want to shoot with a Nikon D810, which is a 36 megapixel camera? Because per square millimeter, you have 20% better resolution potential, all things being equal, if you do the right exposure to the sensor. All things being equal, you get 20% better, more detail per square millimeter on the D7100 than you do, that's roughly 20%. Like if you're able to scale up the D7100 sensor to full frame size, you take 24 megapixels times 2.3 or 2.6077, ends up being 56 megapixels. I think I made a mistake in a prior video from a couple weeks ago that I said 42 megapixels. That's not the case. Yeah, 2.3077. It's actually 56 megapixels, so it's 24 times 2.3077. It's actually just a hair above that, but specifically it's a 50 megapixel sensor, and this is confirmed with Digital Lloyd and others. So that is what your Nikon D7100 sensor would be if it were scaled up from DX to full frame. If it were scaled up and keeping the same pixel pitch. Same pixel pitch. And what is the pixel pitch between the two? Yeah, it's pixel, I can't remember what the pixel pitch is. Yeah, pixel pitch is D810 4.8 micrometers, D7100 3.9 micrometers. Anyway, getting back to this erroneous video that's full of lies and twaddle. I never said they're intentional lies. This person says in this video, and I love how he says it so calmly, and I'm not attacking this person, okay? I'm really not. So don't, you're attacking him. No, I'm attacking lies. I mean, I'm attacking rubbish and nonsense, okay? I don't like disinformation. And I found an article last night someone sent me that Zach Arias was pointing out the same thing about his particular video. This person said, small sensors have similar noise when you give them similar light. Well, that's not true. Total light pixel pitch is much higher on a DX sensor. So that's not true. Small sensors have similar noise when you give them similar light. That's not true. What are you comparing anyway? An old DX camera with poor SNR firmware in it? That's not true. This person additionally says, well, a bigger sensor has a cleaner image because it can gather more light. Well, we've already talked about this ad nauseum in my other video. In photography, unlike satellite dishes and magnifying glasses and photography, we're not talking about the lenses here, okay? You got a bigger lens front element, you know, you got a big expensive f1.2, whatever the hell, it's gathering more light. That's all well and fine. That has to do with bokeh, ultimate depth of field, how fast the lens is, so you can have faster shutter speeds. Okay, we understand that. Okay, we're not disputing that. It doesn't matter at the side of the sensor. The side of the sensor. This is the other side of the sensor I keep telling you folks about. Okay, he says bigger sensors have a cleaner image because it can gather more light. Well, he's actually talking about, well, this sensor is bigger than this sensor. Let me get it out here. Here's a DX sensor, here's full frame sensor. And he said, well, bigger sensor has a cleaner image because it can gather more light. Has nothing to do with that. Here, I've taken apart hundreds of cameras. I used to repair cameras. Here's a sensor from a Nikon D7100. Okay, it's a DX sensor. Okay, there it is. You think lenses don't give a shit what sensor is underneath them. Okay, I stick the lens here. Doesn't matter what lens it is. Sony, Leica, Voigtlander, Canon. It doesn't matter what lens it is. When it was made, who it was made by, what camera it's on. Every lens shits out the same amount of light per square millimeter. In luminal density, lux. Okay? Now you can say, well, if I stick a bigger sensor under there, then the totality of the light that's gathered is more. Yeah, but in photography, we don't give a shit about that. We don't give a shit because we're interested not in the totality of the light, which is obviously more. We're not talking about satellite dishes and magnifying glasses. We're talking about each individual, countless millions of rays of light that make up the totality of the picture. Okay? Whew. Damn! Stupid! Okay. This isn't true. The bigger sensor doesn't matter. It doesn't. For gathering more light. Also is the case, every lens is the same. They all have a sweet spot and they all fall off. So technically, the full frame sensor is actually gathering, it's actually using the worst part of the lens. It's also why lenses are being redesigned, because everything now is going to full frame sensors with DX pixel density with DX pixel pitches. So this isn't true. Also, the full frame sensor, like I said, just gathers less light since you get further towards the edge. We also need to talk about photosite size. It's not full frame versus crop sensor, rather pixel pitch. Now, gain has since leveled out. Now, it doesn't matter who the hell's making the sensor now. The actual sensor side gain, there used to be a difference. Some of them had better gain if they were the exact same size photosites. Now they've all learned to copy each other, and they've all now become basically homogenized as far as the gain at sensor. Everything else is SNR firmware and AD converters, and hopefully if you're shooting in RAW, you should always be shooting in RAW anyway. You know, unless you plan on just taking pictures for Facebook, where it doesn't matter for shit at all, since you're just uploading to Facebook, in which case just use your damn iPhone. The hell do you need a DSLR for anyway? Wow, man, the things he says in this video are just so wrong. A person also goes on to state that I don't care about how much light is falling on each, you don't need to care about how much light is falling on each inch of the sensor. He could have said millimeter. I don't care about how much light is falling on each millimeter of the sensor since we're not dealing with film emulsions anymore. Wrong! Yeah, we're not dealing with film emulsions anymore. I was up to my elbows in film and paper for 20 years before this person ever picked up a camera. But here's where he's wrong. We are actually, except we're just dealing with a different medium. Except it's not emulsions anymore, but it's pixel pitch. Photosite size. It's, you know, no long-range bird shooter on Earth can agree with that statement he made. He said, we don't care about how much light is falling on each inch of the sensor. Well, that's what defines exposure. What do you mean you don't care about how much light is falling on each square inch, or we don't have to really say inches when it comes to DX versus full frame sensor. Each square millimeter of the sensor. Yeah, you do. It has to do with exposure. Now we need to talk about gain. Okay, you got the right exposure. What's the gain at the side of the sensor, then the AD converters, the SNR firmware, and then finally edited in RAW. Okay, some people don't edit anything in RAW. They just convert it to JPEG. Well, it looks nice. I'm going to convert it to a JPEG and upload it to Facebook or to Flickr. This video is just so full of errors. I can just go on and on, but nobody want to listen to it. They go, boring. In which case, I'd actually pretty much agree with you. Let's make one more video and then we'll nail this to the wall, which I think I've already done anyway. But yeah, this video of his, and he's got 2 videos on crop sensor also. The reason he's so confused is he takes all this BS data off of DxOMark, which is just a site that's full of unicorns and pixie farts, and talks about virtual megapixels, which have no basis in reality at all. There is no such thing as a virtual megapixel. And he just conflates one piece of math with another piece of math. But ultimately, we're talking about physicality here, and this is very, very simple on the level of what is physical. Okay, catch you next video. Bye!